to call this meeting to order for what is this, November the 19th, 2020 at 5 o'clock. Mr. Parkson, could you please call the roll?
Mrs. Boynton?
Muted.
Muted.
Here.
Mr. Kennedy?
Here.
Mrs. Patterson?
Present.
Mr. Stevens?
Here.
And Mr. Tench?
Here.
Okay, could you please, well, we don't have a flag. Well, I created something if no one has a flag, but we'd like to stand to pledge for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Here's a little something right here. This is what I had back when I was at 4th of July. So I just have the little something here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, just a little something different here. All right, as we move down the agenda, Dr. Celico, I'm going to turn everything over to Dr. Celico for a presentation and awards section. So Dr. Celico, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens, and thanks for bringing that flag. That was a jazzy one. I like it.
Just a little something. I usually have it on my card for the 4th of July parade. So, yeah. But it's a little something.
It looked familiar. All right. Okay. So, well, thank you, everyone who is here this evening, and those of you who are listening at home. As you can see, we've moved our meetings to remote, which is why you see us all on your screen as opposed to at Columbus. And that was for obvious reasons. But this evening, we have a work session, and we have 3 presentations, 2 of which will be done by our our middle school and Glendale principals. And I think they have some assistance from their assistants and deans. But with that, we will start with a presentation from Hesket and Mrs. Lakar. And I believe Mr. Rakowski and Mrs. Brooks are both joining us this evening. So I will turn it over to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Celico. I'm going to share my screen at this time. Where'd it go? Where's my present? Oh, okay. Am I on? Can you hear me? What is this?
Yeah.
Okay, good. I don't know why it started from there. Let's do that. Okay. So thank you for having us this evening from Hesket Middle School Board President, Mr. Stevens, Vice President, Ms. Patterson, and members of the Board of Education, Dr. Celico, and members of the Cabinet. Thank you for this opportunity. Especially in this very unprecedented presented times that we are here this evening. I did want to, as Dr. Celico mentioned, have both Mr. Rakowski as the assistant principal and Ms. Brooks Dilliard as the dean of students help with this presentation this evening. As you can see, I'm not going to belabor this slide, but this is our tagline, our mission, our vision, and our core values as a district. And with that, we followed suit at Hesket Middle School, and we have our vision, our mission, and our core values. Our mission statement is that we want to welcome students into a diverse, rigorous, and safe educational setting where student success is necessary for all. Our vision is that the students at Hesket Middle School will leave prepared socially, emotionally, and academically to succeed at Bedford High School. Our core values are our ROAR, R-O-A-R, that is the same as our PBIS. And we have our own little slogan of HMS, standing for Hesket Middle School, as home of mindful scholars. Just to get started a little bit about our culture committee, I'm sorry, to get started with our awards and honors. We are doing our best here to focus on keeping our school to feel like it's a real school. We're trying to keep this as tangible as possible for our students and our staff in this very challenging time. The staff here, we are representing our staff as our staff members of the week, and this includes all members. Of course, this does not say teachers of the week, but we represent either 2 or 3 of our staff members of the week. Kitchen staff, it doesn't matter whether they're here in the building or not. Teachers, custodial staff, everybody. We are honoring and recognizing their hard work in this time in our weekly social media accounts, whether it is our Twitter account or our Facebook account. We also are recognizing our students of the week and of the month. And these are all live links. If you were to click on them, you could see what the staff members of the week were, the students of the month, and so on. What is important to also know is that we have created about the 3rd week into school, we decided to do the Principal's Corner. Miss Brooks, Dillard, and Mr. Rakowski and myself, we all put together a weekly video using WeVideo for our students to see so they can see our face, make connections. And that is where we also highlight our staff members of the week, as well as our students of the week as well. So again, it's just, we're trying to find as many ways as we can to highlight these areas and give them information, but to make them feel as if this is a real school situation for them, even though they're not here in the building. So a little bit about how we teach, a little bit of more information on this slide, as it's important to for me to express that we are focusing this year on the framework of UDL. Our goal is to improve and to optimize the teaching and learning for all students and staff. And even though we are working remotely, we are working on removing barriers for our students in this remote setting. But just as important, we are planning for the future and our return of students to school. The focus this year is around evidence-based instructional practices. Both Ms. Brooks, Mr. Rakowski, and I, using the OTES system or the PTES, which is the Principals Evaluation System, have to create goals. And our goals are all in sync with each other on an academic realm. And these goals are to provide teacher leveled professional development. And the leveled professional development we think is very important for teachers. So we don't just give it in a staff meeting and then it's gone and then it's done. This leveled professional development for teachers is an opportunity for them to learn in a large group at a staff meeting. But Ms. Brooks takes on that staff challenge. And then I meet with each of the grade level teams individually, doing a different professional development around the same topic. This month, we were working on exit tickets. Our goal is to inspect what we expect of our students and our teachers here in the building. And we do that using the MTSS committee. As you can see, the tiered systems of support for students is very important. We meet it as a committee every month. We take that information to the staff meeting every month. So again, this is all very linear for us here at Hesket. This year, we're building these foundational blocks around UDL, which is the Universal Design for Learning, the MTSS system of support, and that all then is delineated within our BLTs, our TLT, TBTs, and our team meetings. So we are really focusing on a very linear approach to the UDL format to, again, give the best back to our students.
So as Kim mentioned, we are making sure that we are trying to hit all tiers of students. So that's first, we're focusing on our tier 1 instruction with these evidence-based instructional strategies. As Kim mentioned, we're rolling out professional development each month to staff, and then working with teachers in small teams each week, and then also reinforcing those strategies through our teacher-based teams our teacher-based team process. Another way that we are addressing our tiers of students or students that we know may need some additional support is through our no new instruction period. That's our NNI time. Students have access to teachers for extensions or interventions 4 times a week. It's extended on our Bearcat Wednesday, so they actually have 3 different periods where they're able to access teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Brooks Dillard. Good evening. As we're all aware that none of this can happen unless we have good, solid student attendance and engagement with our students. Now, attendance, it's an immediacy thing for us. We deal with it every day in and day out. And I need to express to you that we deal with it from a bottom up top method, starting with the teachers. We're making phone calls. We go on through a comprehensive list of interventions that we have for our students and families. One thing that I would like to highlight is the bottom here, Success Academy. We launched this last week. Tonight is science and social studies, for example. We have extra intervention periods in the evening from 6 to 8 for our students at Hesket Middle School. I have identified 40 students who would be appropriate for this program. And as of today, as of tonight, actually, I got just another parent phone call tonight. We have 51 that are engaged and involved in Success Academy. And these are students that, again, have been identified as having some concern with being engaged or being not so engaged and having so not great attendance. So I can offer you that this program is going very well so far. Our challenge at this point is just getting students to attend. But last night we had the best attendance thus far, and so that's just a great success for us. And I think I'm going back to Mrs. Lakar.
So we had to dig a little bit deep to grab some data, some high stakes data for you. And so we went back to our 2019 MAP testing data. That was the last time our students were able to take MAP testing. So again, this is just some information as students as 7th graders. And I chose to highlight this a little bit to you because I wanted to highlight that these are not acceptable numbers. And so we took this data and processed it and made decisions for our new schedule. So as you know, we start building the schedule in the winter. So this winter data allowed us to make some decisions. We did look longitudinally as well and looked back on some things. The first thing we looked at is teachers. We looked at some teachers and we looked at some teachers in particular with math, said who's been teaching our students math? We took a look at some of that longitudinal information and we did make some decisions and changed our schedules, again, to meet the needs of students. We want highly effective teachers teaching our students every day, especially in the areas of math and language arts. And as we go to the next slide or a little further along, we'll talk about our goals as well. But this also led us to have further discussion on those evidence-based instructional practices under the umbrella of UDL to raise the performance index. So the performance index for us is a focus. It's not just necessarily how many kids have passed, but our goal is to make sure that we are moving kids out of low into low average, out of low average into average, moving them up the scale and moving them into the high percentile or Lexile numbers, percentile numbers. That is the most important thing for us. Our goal, as you will see in a few minutes, is to increase our reading and math categories, each of these categories, by 5%.
So as Kim mentioned, we're not happy with where our data stands as of right now. So we're always looking for ways to improve it. Part of the way that we did this was by implementing that no new instruction time that I mentioned earlier in the slideshow. That's something that was not in our schedule previously. We added that in order to try and make sure that we are helping more students. We're currently working on a plan where we are going to pull some students to do some pre-teaching rather than reteaching in the math department. So kind of scaffolding them by giving them some tools that they can use going into the next lesson as opposed to trying to address deficits after they occur. We also utilize our MTSS meetings to make sure that we are looking at student data and then coming up with plans to help students succeed. And then we also have added some iReady an iReady program for students to use to get caught up who may have some gaps as well.
So again, back to attendance. I mean, I would like to express to you that we at Hesket are really, we have such a sense of immediacy and urgency with our attendance. We are rewarding children who have great attendance. Those are the numbers there in front of you. And I need to express to you that, again, we have a team effort, a comprehensive program at Hesket dealing with attendance. Most of our students, not most, but the majority of our students are signing on and are doing what they need to do. But I just need to express that we also have a comprehensive team effort at the middle school in what we're doing to intervene with students that are not, that don't rather have great attendance. We're doing several things such as home visits, phone calls, parent meetings. We have the gamut of opportunities that we have at our, opportunities to take care of these situations with our kids. Beachbrook is involved, parents, administration. Our SEL team is doing a great job at Hesket Middle School dealing with attendance. And at the same time, again, we are celebrating those students that have great attendance as well.
So aligned with our district CCIP goals, we have our building CCIP goals as well. And our goal, as I said, is not just to get kids into the proficient category, but our goal is to focus on evidence-based instructional practices. So we have to have the how, right? How are we going to get there? So the how is working on these strategies, these practices, then that focus on the science of reading. So the science of reading is the little equation that you see in the middle of the page. It talks about decoding skills and language comprehension skills equal a good comprehension, a good reading comprehension for a student. And we're going to increase the percentage of students who are proficient or higher. So again, we need to move our students from low and low average to proficient and higher, and our goal is 5%. And we're going to do that with evidence-based best practices that focus around the science of reading. And you will hear a little bit more about that when we talk about the Striving Readers Grant later in the show. For math, our goal is, again, very wrapped around the information that we have from the district CCIP goal. And as we stated earlier, our goal is to think about pre-teaching for students instead of reteaching. We see in our data across K to 12 that students struggle with number sense. So if a student comes to the middle school and they're struggling with just simple multiplication, they're going to struggle with multiplying using equations, using exponents, using it in other ways. So the goal for us is to, again, move the kiddos up in the categories of proficient and advanced and accelerated by more than 5%. And we're doing that using all of these practices. The no new instruction is a big important piece because that allows us to do some pre-teaching, some of those number sense skills that our students are missing.
So in alignment with the goals that Mr. Lakar just mentioned, we are continuously providing professional development to our teachers each month. For the month of November, we looked at using exit slip data to drive instruction, and we'll be working on the rest of the ones that are listed here. I believe Mr. Lakar mentioned earlier, by all of us, I mean our admin team, have goals aligned to raising student achievement this year. So we are all working as a team to make sure that our teachers have the professional development that they need to help students do that.
Part of our goal, as Mrs. Lakar mentioned earlier, part of our goal is to make our school just as much of a school as it is virtually. And some of the things that we have done are noteworthy. Our Bionic team is a great team. Bionic stands for because I
Believe it or not, I care.
Thank you. Believe it or not, I care. They've done a number of things alongside PBIS with our teachers, and we have done some things virtually also with kids. We have delivered McDonald's to students who have been students of the month, which has been great, but we've had to put that to the side because of what's going on outside. Mrs. Lakar mentioned her video. Her videos are fun. They're a little quirky, I think, to me, and staff and students seem to really love them. One thing that we really enjoy doing is bringing a snack cart. We have a cart that we bring around to teachers probably once a week, and it's just really a highlight for our teachers. But we're trying to keep our building positive and alive, and I can tell you that just walking around, the three of us walking around the building is still positive. I have to say that. I have to report that. And our teachers are thriving in their virtual world. We're very happy with what we're hearing and what we're seeing every day when we walk around, and weekly when we do our fun little snack cart.
So then getting back to the business of increasing our scores. As you know, in the past few years, about 3 years ago, the district received a Striving Readers Grant from the state of Ohio. And starting last year, we, with the help of Mrs. Willis, actually the driving force of Mrs. Willis, applied for a Striving Readers Grant that is specific to Hesket Middle School. It is a 5-year grant. And the grant funds are being used to improve our practices around reading and revamping our school into a model school. We are going to be very proud to invite and host and emulate what a model school for reading is here in the Cleveland area. Teachers from all content area are joining this Striving Readers team. We have social studies teachers, science teachers, math teachers, language arts teachers, special ed teachers, specials areas teachers. All of us are working in conjunction with the ESE and the link coordinators, as well as outside consultants. For example, we've used Dr. Dan Reynolds with John Carroll, Andrew Pinney teaching math teaching strategies, because disciplinary literacy is very important. We just spent a few days following and learning more in depth on disciplinary literacy and understanding that a math teacher doesn't know how to teach reading, but there's clear disciplinary literacy skills in math that students can learn, that teachers can teach with the help of the professional development that will greatly improve their language arts and math goals for the district and their personal goals. So I'm very excited about this. This is my biggest thing. I can't wait for in 5 years, people to be coming into Hesket Middle School, and we are going to be the model for Northeast Ohio. And to me, that's super exciting. And that will get us to reach our goals.
Speaking of striving readers, our community outreach this year is First Chapter Friday. So First Chapter Friday is when students have the opportunity to hear a high interest book read aloud to them. So our guest readers are members of the school community and parents. And so students that are interested in continuing the book, we have books available for them through our Striving Readers Grant. And this initiative just promotes a love for reading and exposes students to more books. We know that the more students read, the better readers they are. So as often as we can put books in the hands of students, we try to do so. Our first Chapter Friday will be the first Friday in December. And I'm excited to have the students exposed to their guest readers.
So that is all we have for you this evening. We thank you for listening. And if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them at this time, or if there isn't anything at this time, but you would like to think about it and reach out to us, we'd be happy to answer any questions.
This is Mrs. Patterson. You want me to direct the questions to you, Mrs. Lakar, or to the person that gave the presentation?
I think you can direct them to me, and if
okay. I'd like to know the difference between reteach and pre-teach. What's the difference?
So our goal here is to pre-teach. So some of the skills that students are lacking, they may be lower grade level skills instead, or It could be on grade level skills, but there are students that are showing us that they struggle in math, for example. So instead of teaching them at the same time with everyone in the class, we're trying to give them the confidence, especially in math where they struggle. And so we're going to spend a day or two giving them some vocabulary, giving them some practice. So when it comes to, and that's in our no new instruction time. So they're not missing any instruction anywhere else. And that gives them the confidence to go into math with a little bit of forward and prior knowledge with that information to help them be a little more successful. We have just started this, so we don't have a lot of data around it yet, but this was a suggestion from our MTSS team, Patricia Harris, who runs that. There's a lot of, she's talked to us about some research about pre-teaching.
Okay, so if a student is in the math class and the teacher is teaching higher math of multiplication with 5 or 6 numbers, so tell me how you would pre-teach that.
So they're looking at some of the data. So these are kids that are struggling in math. So they may pull, so Mr. Muniak is the one who is doing that for us. And they may pull these students in and an opportunity for them to look at, you know, breaking down in very small chunks how to do that work before they get to doing it. So then when they get there, they're like, oh, I see, I'm going to, in your equation, if it's 592,000, blah, blah, by 24, you know, they're lining up those numbers. They have some of those skills. So they're coming with a skill base that they might not have had. And then a teacher may then need to, if they didn't have this pre-teaching, they might not have the time during that class. And then we spend time reteaching. Our goal is to feed them and give them prior knowledge so that they're successful at the time of education.
You said reteaching, not pre-teaching?
We want to focus on pre-teaching instead of reteaching. That is
okay. All right. Second question. Explain about the teachers. What did you do to look at teachers and what they were teaching, since their grades were not as what you expected, or the level was not where you expected? So what did you do with those teachers?
Are you talking about, I'm sorry, the slide about when we changed and made changes to the math teaching department?
I don't know if it was just math. It looked like all the grades across were kind of low. So you said you did something with teachers, and so I just need an explanation about what you did.
So we had some, so, you know, at Hesket Middle School, teachers have like a cross certification because they're, most of them are middle school 4 to 9 with double certification. And there were some teachers that were, and we actually have some K-8 teachers too. We had in particular one teacher that I'm going to put in my brain, teaching math with a high failure rate. And looking back, prior to me being at Hesket Middle School, this teacher had remained in math for several years with a high failure rate. And so we had an opportunity to move that teacher to a different content with a very supportive team that was very successful at the time, and in this case, to science, and gave that person some professional development over the summer in science to make them successful there. And then we looked and we had some new teachers. You know, I'm not sure if you remember, but for last school year, we had quite a few new teachers hired in the building. And we moved a teacher into that position to teach math. Give that, and that person had a high background in math and language arts as well. So
go ahead.
So the opportunity is, you know, if we, you know, the adage of if you keep doing what you're doing and you keep getting what you're getting, you got to make a change. And it was an opportunity to make a change. Unfortunately, that person ended up having a baby. So we're going to be starting second semester with this teacher teaching math. It's been a few years, but that person actually asked for the opportunity. The person that we moved into science has been pretty successful with a good, solid team around them. So we're seeing that right now in the first 9 weeks, it was a good team. So we'll know more, you know, as the time goes on. but that was the opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Any other board member would like to have any questions?
Yeah, Phil, Kim, I think it was Robert that brought this up. I think you said it was a Success Academy. Is that the term?
Yes.
What he said that you showed some improvement on getting the kids involved through the Success Academy. What are you doing? What are we doing different through that avenue compared to just what you were doing prior to? You follow me?
Yeah, I will let Mr. Rakowski answer that as well. But the biggest change to that is that it's an evening tutoring program. So it's mostly for the students that are struggling in the mornings. Maybe they are helping with families at home, things at home, and this gives them some evening opportunities. And Mr. Rakowski, if you wanted to add to that.
I would love to. Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Tench. So this program is, again, it's just starting last week. We put together the program. It's like creating summer school all over again here within a week to get this program started. And we did it. Again, we identified students that had engagement issues, and what we have enrolled them in is programming with teachers from 6 to 7 and then from 7 to 8. Now they're not obligated for 2 hours, although last night there was a kid that was there for 2 hours. They're only there for 1 hour a night per content area, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. It's small numbers. It's one-on-one attention. It's kind of like the model of what Sylvan Learning Centers does. And what Sylvan Learning Centers does, I worked there before I got a job, in fact, is that you go into Sylvan Learning Center and the teacher that you're assigned to gives you targeted interventions to try to help you in that specific content area. So one thing that I'm very happy to express to you as a board is that the teachers and the staff that we have are critical. I mean, this goes with everything across the board. You have to have the right people in the right seats. And we do at Hesket Middle School. We have teachers that are, one, willing to help our kids, which is key. And two, they're not doing this for the money. They're doing this because they want to help our kids. They see that some of our kids are not engaged and doing well, and they stepped up to the plate, volunteered. I get that they're getting paid, but they're giving away their family time from 6 to 8 once a week to intervene with these children. And it's so very important that they have, last week, they have been tasked with building a sense of community with each other. I've asked them to keep their cameras on and get to know these students as individuals and students that are struggling for an amalgamation of reasons. Now, on top of that, we have what are called open rooms. These 2 open rooms are Tuesday and Wednesday, and they're housed by Miss Harris, our school psych, and Mrs. McKean, our art teacher, and who's in charge of the bionic team. These 2 individuals are also in it for the right reason. They're also in it as mentors to these now 51 students. We contact these students and parents weekly to make sure that they're coming, but we're dealing with parents that are disengaged themselves and kids that are also disengaged, again, for numerous reasons. So as time goes on, we're hoping that the data is going to make our decision as to whether or not this is successful or not. But this is something that we're making happen. We're making it happen. And again, the word is out on the street. I was telling Felice today, the word's out on the street with what's going on with this program. Kids want in. Kids want in because they need help and they want help, and it's free. And parents are in. Initially, and I'll stop after this point. Initially, when we sent our initial interest letters out, we got 8 to 10 parents that responded to me directly. We since have called every parent on board, and every parent is like, yes, this is what my child needs. And again, the word is out on the street. I mean, parents are now calling, wanting their kids to be enrolled, to the point where I'm a little trepidatious because I think I added 7 or 8 just today. So I don't want to overwhelm our teachers, because one of the very critical components is that we have a one-on-one thing kind of going on with our kids.
Mhm.
This is what they need. And so that's where we're moving forward.
I applaud the effort, because like someone said before, you know, if whatever you're doing isn't working, you're going to have to do something else. One other question, Kim, has anybody crunched the numbers regarding the grades? I know this is, it's hard to judge from remote from March to June of last year, but to see how we compared, or Hesket compared academically in years prior, in the first quarter, or first, you know, up to this point, how much impact has the remote learning had on the bottom line as far as grades go?
So I haven't compared it to other years, but what we have done, we are actually ironically just in the middle of that. So we pulled our grade reports for all the teams. So every kid is on an academic team, right? And I have 3 8th grade teams and 2 7th grade teams. And we've been addressing students that are at risk. So Miss Willis and Miss Willis recommended, and it's a great idea. Myself and my counselors have a at-risk spreadsheet that we keep. And anything that we do, any interventions we do, we are logging that into that worksheet. We went over our Fs. You know, we ran a report to see who had Fs. We met with our teams today and had some really very good, rich discussion, because this whole framework of UDL isn't something that you can just implement in one day. It's not just something you can just teach them in one moment. It's not one professional development session they can go to. It's a process, and it's a mindset. I mean, it really takes a mindset to be able to say what, you know, and here's what I was really happy about. This was my 4th team meeting today, and I have only had one teacher say, oh, they have Fs because of the kids. One. And I'm talking, so that's almost 30 teachers I've met with. Every one of them have come to the table, because I pre-warned, you know, I pre-gave them, this is what we're going to talk about. They have come with solutions. They've come with ideas. They have met with each other to bounce. So I have more Fs than you. So what are you doing? Why does it look different for me? So the mindset is starting to change. And that's all we can ask for. So I don't know what first quarter in 18 and 17 and 16 looked like, but I can say that, yes, I keep making the reference of building a better boat. That's what I keep telling the teachers. There's a Kenny Chesney song about just build a better boat, right? So in March, we didn't build a boat. We were on the Titanic and it sank, and we were swimming for our lives, right? And then we hopped on these little lifeboats, and we just, you know, got through March, April, May. And we didn't do a bad job. But then we came back to school and we stayed remote. So now we're in a boat, and our boat is not a bad boat, but our boat can always look better, bigger, stronger. And every day, that's what we do. So I can get that data if you need. But my most important thing is that teachers are looking within themselves to say, how can I be better at this remote learning? Because we can only do what we can do and what we're told to do. And we will make anything happen, like Success Academy, new instruction, teachers, mentors. I mean, we will do all of that. So they're not where we want them to be with Fs, but I will tell you, it's also 5 or 6 teachers out of the 50 that I have. And I'll take that all day long, because I'll just keep working with it.
Yeah, Kim, if I could add, Mr. Tench, tomorrow I do have that data. I have it, Ms. Shenter gave me, I asked her to gather information on first quarter this last year versus first quarter this year, the percentage of Fs. So you will actually be able to see the comparison. You're going to get that tomorrow. It's already ready to go for you. So you'll get to see it, the comparison.
For Hesket?
And the middles and the high school, yes.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. That'd be a big help. I'm just curious, I mean, because, you know, this is still new to everyone, and you know, the impact it has on our students academically. I think that's pretty telling if we're close to where we are when we teach in person. Hopefully that's the case. We didn't lose too much ground academically, but I wouldn't be surprised if we did. So that information would be great. Thank you.
Any other questions from board members?
I would like to say something, Mr. Stevens.
Go right ahead.
Okay, first of all, I'm so happy that Hesket is looking at different ways of doing things to improve the academics for our children. So kudos to you for the Success Academy. Sounds good. And I really like that pre-teaching model. I think that's great. That small group on the No New Instruction Day, that you can get some students together, get them prepared for what's coming, because time is of essence when you are and have children that are not maybe ready for the grade level, maybe some of the grade level tasks that are happening during that whole group or time. So it's good to have that. I really like that pre-teaching. So I was glad that you explained that a little bit better. And kudos to you. I think it was you, Chris. I don't remember reading the email about the first chapter Friday. Was that's your baby? I like that, and I'm definitely going to volunteer. So great job on changing things, because those scores are very, very low. And I'm so glad that we're doing something to address that. I'm glad that you're making the movement with the teachers, because I think teachers should teach to their strength. And if it's not going to happen, then we have to do something else. So I'm glad that you're taking the initiative to do that. And it sounds like everything sounds like it sounds really good, because you have three initiatives. Really sounds really good. So I would like to see what it looks like, after we, especially by the end of the school year, to see how it works. Of course, I'm one of those board members that want children back face to face in the building. But what you're doing now, especially with the remote, it sounds really good. So kudos to all three of you and your team for coming up with something different.
Thank you. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Anything else?
Yeah, real quick, Phil. Good job, Mr. Lakar, and your team. I look at it like I'm glad you looked at the right people in the right seats. Just because a teacher or any job, just because you've been there for years, doesn't mean it's just a given. And I think that's great. There's some strengths that people have that maybe, like you said, maybe are better utilized at a different subject. My question is you guys are looking at your teachers, and I know you can't answer this, it's just a general comment. But if you guys have all your people in the right seats at Hesket, we have to make sure that everybody's in the right seats below you, because they're building the foundation for you, and it's all the way up. And I like the pre-teaching. I just don't. I look at it like this. I don't want to see an extensive amount of pre-teaching or reteaching. If that's the case, then we're breaking down somewhere. Before it gets to you. And I'm not saying they are or they aren't. I'm just looking at, it's like any farm system. You have to build them up. And if one coach doesn't teach it right for the person ahead of them, they got to redo it all over. So, that's the way I look at it. To your numbers, the 5% you were talking about is based on that slide you showed. That's the numbers we want to increase.
No, those were map testing data.
Okay.
Did not air test, and we're looking to increase the numbers on air test. They're not very similar, but we didn't air test this year. So
Okay.
the air testing numbers was before I was here at Hesket. So yeah.
When we're talking about 5%, what number of students are we looking at? What would 5% be of that?
In language arts, I think we had about a 54% passage rate. So we're looking to get into the high 50s, 60s. Our lowest was math. And our math was, I think, in the low 30s, and we're looking to increase that. But the other piece too, Mr. Kennedy, is it's that shows us proficiency. Like those are the proficient number of passers. We're looking to get them not just proficient, but we're looking to grow them even higher. And so the kids that are proficient, we want them to be accelerated in advance. So in that performance index on the report card, that's how you get the biggest bang for your buck. So we're looking at raising those So not just, no, they didn't pass, but they passed, but we want them up to the next echelon at that point.
Gotcha.
If I can say, Dr. Johnson works very tedious with us in the past year as she started taking over the master schedules. And we do have a lot of up and down conversation about those teachers to make sure that they are on the right bus. So those conversations have started in the last 2 years with me. And we did make some moves as well on that front as well. We moved a teacher to Columbus because that where she would be better suited. And so those are happening as well.
Good. Okay, thank you.
I'll just make my statement about teachers, and I used to say this to parents. There's no teacher that goes to school for 4 years to fail children. They will have to find their right path, and when they find it, they take off.
Well stated, Ms. Patterson. I totally agree. Well stated. Great
Mr.
comment.
Stevens, could I say one more thing, please?
Go
If you
right
don't
ahead.
mind? Okay. I wanted to ask about I know I had something written down. The at-risk spreadsheet. I know you're looking at the children that are at risk, that are failing. Are you also looking at if those are, because that made me think about it when Mr. Kennedy said you have to make sure the children have the foundation skills at the lower grade. But I want to know if you also look at if those are transient students, were they at Hesket, were they in at the other schools, or how many years, or were they transient students? So I just wonder if you look at that when you're looking at that data.
Yes, and we also don't just consider our at-risk students just an academic at-risk. We also are talking about their social and emotional needs. So we have lots of students that maybe are, kind of keeping it together with a C or a D, but yet they're kind of a social emotional challenge right now. So our spreadsheet is about everything, the whole child. And we do look at transiency. We do look back at their records. We do look at those, those longitudinal pieces of information. It's pretty easy now. We can go right in the system and see if a kid has map tested with us, and take a look at that. So there's lots of factors. And we just keep a lot of data in there as well.
Okay. All right. Great information, board. Great questions. And Ms. Lakar, you were able to answer those questions thoroughly and confidently. So we really do appreciate that. And just the fact that you have some creative and innovative things in place for students and parents, we can't ask for anything more from where we are at this stage. So great job to Ms. Lakar, Ms. Brooks, and Mr. Rakowski. Great presentation. Good job. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us this evening.
Thank you. Dr. Celico, go right ahead.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Stevens. I would just add before I introduce Ms. Black that the Success Academy is also happening at the high school. We replicated that at the high school. So just so you're aware, it's 712, and they're experiencing similar success. I asked for a report out just the other day. Mr. Rakowski and Ms. Lewis, who's in charge of it at the high school, said that they were very successful in making personal calls, which I thought was a great extra touch, because sending an email to parents sometimes gets overlooked, but the personal contacts have really helped. So again, thank you, Hesket staff. And now I'd like to introduce Ms. Black, our principal at Glendale, and she will be assisted by Mr. Terrell, our Dean of Students. Thank you.
Good evening, Board Presidents Stevens, Vice President Patterson, also members of the board. Good evening, Dr. Celico, and members of the cabinet. I am joined today by Mr. Terrell. And Mr. Terrell, thank you for being able, we didn't think that he was going to be able to get on by video, so he's here, so I'm excited about that. This is his first board presentation. Allow me to share my screen. So I'm going easy on him today. He won't speak as much, but I just want to get his feet wet with how this works. And he has just been a great addition to our team. I could not be happier to work with him. All right. So I'm going to ask the question, and someone's going to have to unmute their mic because I'm not able to see you when I'm sharing. but can you see my screen? That's a question we ask a million times a day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Wonderful. Okay. So again, this is what the slide you saw at Hesket Middle School, and should be very familiar to all of us. And I am going to bring up the vision and the mission again, and how we have tied our vision and mission to the district's vision and mission. And you will see that a little bit later on in the presentation. So tonight we have myself and Mr. Terrell. Here are pictures. We actually used these pictures in the virtual open house. So we had a lot of fun with these Bitmojis, and that was all the rage. And now we hardly hear of that anymore, but I wanted to show you guys the banners, and it's also still online. So if you wanted to view that open house, I know that Dan Humphrey has done a really nice job at putting all those resources together. So our open house is still online. The following, and excuse me, I'm going to get through this, but I want to pay a special tribute to our beloved writer, Boozer, who we just recently passed away. This was last Friday. Writer, his smile can light up a room. He can shoot and make a basket from any place in the gymnasium, and he could run like the wind. So the Glendale community, we're mourning the loss right now, but I couldn't do this word presentation without saying his name, because he was such an important part of our school culture and climate. And so we will miss Ryder dearly. And I know that his mom is watching tonight as well. And so I just continue to send my condolences to the family, and just know we have your back, and we're going to wrap our arms around you. So our vision and mission statement are directly tied. If you look at it, it's just inspiring Glendale, the Glendale learning community every day to achieve excellence. And all Glendale students will graduate as open-minded, responsible citizens. Now, I too, like I heard that Kim does, I am on the morning announcements every day. And Mr. Terrell has just recently joined me, and I have to share the spotlight with him because people were so excited when he was giving the morning announcements. But I always give the children a pep talk about virtual learning every morning. And then we end by saying our pledge of I am respectful. And it was funny. One of my teachers came to me and she said, Mrs. Black, before I was saying I can be. And she said, you need to speak like those affirmations, I am. And I said, you know what? You're absolutely right. So we've turned out those raw expectations into affirmations. This year, our slogan is Glendale Superheroes Wear Masks. And if you saw our bus, which we are sharing, I know that Hesket won that big prize and it was well-deserved, but we are sharing with Central Primary School, and we were able to split $250. So our bus was the one with all the superheroes and the mask and the huge cape on the back of it. We're very proud of that. Mr. Terrell, if you would like to take over from here.
Okay, sure, Ms. Black. First, good evening, Mr. Stevens, President, Vice President Patterson, board members. Good evening, Dr. Celico and cabinet members. So at Glendale, what we do is a Stellar Student Award. So for the Stellar Student Award, what you must do, it came from our school PBIS committee. President Ms. Rigby is in charge of that. She leads that, should I say. All our teachers are a big asset to it. Each homeroom teacher recognizes a student that demonstrates ROAR behavior for the month. As you can see, there are some of our stellar students so far. There's more of them, but each student has a certificate mailed to them, and parents can send photos to be posted on social media. As you know, we have an Instagram page. Please check it out. A lot of our students talk about it all the time, how they seen one of their classmates on there. They love it so far. They're very excited about it. Teacher feature recognition. Each Friday, a staff member is featured on our social media feed. As you can see, Ms. Sanders is there. Great teacher. I enjoy working with her so far. This is the opportunity for our community members to get to know our staff. As you know, due to this virtual environment, a lot of students have not been exposed to certain staff members, especially if they're not in their class. So by going to the social media, they can see other teachers that they potentially will have next year. Also, kids who probably already went to Glendale can see their past teachers and see what great of a job they're doing.
Okay, and before I move on to this slide, I would just like to say, if you don't follow our social media, please do. Brandy Rigby, the name you may recognize because she is the Bedford City School District Teacher of the Year, but she has taken over our social media and she's doing a wonderful job. So this week you have to guess the staff member's baby picture, and you are in for a treat because I've seen some of these and it's priceless. They say a picture say 1,000 words, and it's true. So you have to check out the one for today. And I won't tell you who the teacher is. So back in line with those goals. So we did, one of the things that I enjoy working with the whole team, our whole administrative team, much of what you're going to hear is the same as Hesket. And that's a beautiful feeling because it's nice to know that the whole district, we're on the same page. We may have our specific things for our buildings and the way that we shine in different ways, but I feel like for the most part, what we know about teaching and learning is consistent. And we are doing the same thing because we want, and to what you said, I believe, Mr. Kennedy, we want to be sure that even our youngest learners are on track so that the Hesket team, you don't have to do too much pre-teaching. There's always going to be some, but we don't want you to have to do too much because we want to send them to you prepared. And so I completely agree with that statement, and we're charged to do that. So our building CCIP goals are actually in line with our district ones, and we are using those evidence-based strategies. And I know that people are probably getting tired of hearing me say that because I'm saying it in every TBT meeting, at all the BLT meetings, those evidence-based strategies, and being able to distinguish what's a strategy and what's an activity. Because for so long, we thought that, oh, this looks great, but it's an activity. But there's no evidence-based strategy within there that's really helping our students to excel. So that is what we are focused on right now. And also the science of reading. I was having a conversation with one of our new curriculum folks today, Ms. Hall, and we were just talking about how, and reading is so broad, but there is truly a science to reading. And so if you break down those building blocks to reading, the phonemic awareness, to the phonics, to the vocabulary, comprehension, there's a science to reading. And when you follow that science, you develop readers. It's just not happenstance that children read. So I know that last year we started to work in DLT where we started having goals we looked at our district data at DLT, and we realized that phonics area is something that we really need to hit in order for our students to become readers. And we have truly focused on that. And I think that I know that everyone's first TBT goal in the 5-step process was to focus on how are we targeting phonics. And many of those TBTs are continuing to target different areas of phonics. And so we want to increase those scores by 5%, proficient or higher by 5%, same as Hesket. That's what I'm talking about. That's a wonderful thing because we have the same goals. Same thing here with math. We want to increase those scores by 5% as well, using those evidence-based strategies. And at our level, just breaking it down to the very conceptual framework. And what I mean by that is children need to feel math. Math is something for our tactile learners that they need to put something in their hands. And I know during this remote learning environment, that's been a challenge, but I'm going to talk to you later how we are overcoming that challenge and building equitable practices to make sure the students all have the same resources. All right, so what we teach. So in English language arts, we have a K through 3 literacy block. Typically in the in-person environment, that will be about 120 minutes long, including instructional read-alouds, whole and small group instruction, print awareness and phonological awareness, and phonemic awareness. Those are those phonics. And you see that's 3 different areas there. So what are we using? We're using Haggerty, Foundations, Wonders, and iReady. And I just want to say, even our youngest learners, our preschoolers, they are also using Haggerty and Foundations. And we're truly starting to see the benefits of that as those students come up through the school. And I'll show you those scores. So the K through 3 literacy, I'm sorry. The K through 3 math block is 90 minutes of instruction. And a lot of that time is direct instruction, hands-on instruction, but also including in that having math talks. Children need to learn how to talk about the numbers, and we want to see that metacognition. And that's the only way we see that is hearing them, how they talk about the math. We want to see how they think. And that's when you're having the conversations with the students, you are able to see a lot of that. I've been doing observations, and it is amazing what these children are talking about when they're talking about numbers and in the process and making it make sense. And they make a lot of sense, even at our young level here. So the math talks are happening in class. We're using our Eureka, hands-on manipulatives, and just recently we're using Map Accelerator. Now, Map Accelerator, the beautiful thing about that, it takes where they were in the winter for those map scores. And from there, what it does is it puts them at their level and has them work on the skills that they need to strengthen. There's sometimes where, you look at those scores, but you say, I think that this child needs to be extended, or I think that we need to reteach. So the teacher does have control over it. It's not just like it's a computer ran program, because again, we're not just wanting to throw a product at children. We, the professionals, are what leads to resources, the teachers. It's none of this stuff. iReady, Map Accelerator, that's not going to improve our scores alone. It's how our teachers are using them and how our students are using them. So this is you saw this in the last slideshow, our multi-tiered system of support. And I just want to make the comment, I don't have a lot to add from what Hesket added, but one of the things I want to make a comment about is that these UDL strategies that we're using, we're just not teaching it to the teachers, to the homeroom teachers. We are including everyone. This week was the first week that I have support staff, related services, specials teachers, paraprofessionals, and attendants. They are all attending TBT meetings, and they've also all attended the UDL training too. And so they're all seeing how their part, because it's a wraparound service, they're all seeing how their part of what they do impacts the way students learn. And so I have it's funny, my PE teacher has asked to join the preschool team. And one of the comments that the preschool teacher says, well, I'm happy that he's joining our TBT team, because when I'm in his classroom, I see these strategies he's using to teach to children PE, and I know that I can use them in the classroom. And that's powerful. And that's what UDL is all about removing the barriers so that all students can learn. And hopefully that results in less identification. You hear oftentimes of over-identification for special ed, and sometimes, and not that some children don't need those services, they very well do. But a lot of times, if we can just strengthen that tier 1 instruction and really put in place that strategy and do what Hesket said they're doing, and they're just going to do the pre-teaching as opposed to having to reteach, we find that children are successful. So we're going to continue with that. So we know that remote learning has presented its challenges, but we are experiencing some successes as well. One thing I'm hearing from teachers is differentiation has increased. Students are able to access and navigate technology well. And when they don't, they're calling and we're walking them through it. Weekly scheduled material pickup. So that is how we're getting materials into the hands of all of our students. If they can't pick it up, we are also willing to drop it off, because we know the computer is great, but at this level, children need hands-on materials. So we do one of those, we schedule them. You can do them once a week or sometimes more than once a week. And usually right now, teachers are sending home things every other week, not every grade level, but they're alternating. So we have increased teacher collaboration and planning, especially with this Bearcat Wednesday we just have. So I'm very thankful for that, because teachers are now able to plan not only with their team members, they're going over to Central, the other primary school, and planning as well. We're doing a lot of vertical planning, and so grade levels are talking to each other. So that's what it's all about, because we want to be able to close those gaps. So I'm also hearing from teachers, that they have increased parent participation and positive feedback from our families. What you must know is that when you have a kindergartner or a preschooler or even a first grader, we rely heavily on the people and their environment. So our parents have been the rock stars in this. Now the students are becoming more independent and being able to navigate technology. But before, can you imagine first time kindergartner opening up a laptop and you put it in front of them and say, okay, here's your teacher? I will tell you, we had a learning curve, as they say. So our parents have been the true rock stars. Also, we had 69% of our families attend fall conferences. I spoke with many of our teachers, and they said that they feel about the same amount of parents that would come to conferences in person have attended online and virtually. Also, I heard from a lot of teachers that parents now that maybe wouldn't have been able to come are able to take a lunch break during their work schedule, plan it around then, and then come to conferences. So this remote learning has presented its challenges, but also we've been able to reach people that maybe we wouldn't have been able to reach before. So I want to get on to the report card data and the gap closing. And so when we go from K to first grade here, now I want to explain these scores. This is the fall to fall scores. And so what we're seeing is an increase of the students that were, for example, off track in kindergarten in the fall, and then that's 2019. And then when they took the test in the fall, they're on track. So what I'm saying is in fall, 44% of the 44.4% of the students were off track, and only 27% of them were off track in first grade. So that's a difference of 17.4%. Also in first to second grade, 35.9% were off track, and now we only have 19% off track. That's a 16.9 increase. And then from second to third grade, we have 29.3% that were off track, and now only 27% off track. So that third grade number, it's not as dramatic as the other numbers of moving students from off track to on track, but we're moving in the right direction and we're making improvements. And again, it's using those evidence-based strategies, and it's also looking at what instructional materials we're using, the Haggerty, the foundations. Our preschoolers are getting it. So the more students, and I know you hear Dr. Celico say this because preschool is her first love, I feel like, but the more students we get in our preschools and the more preschools we're able to open up, the more students we're able to reach, so that we can continue to start them at the youngest level with these resources and curriculum. So due to the governor's mandate for schools to close, there was no score reporting. But if it had been, what our 2020 K through 3 literacy data, and this speaks to improving at-risk readers, and that is moving them from off track to on track, we would have improved. So we were at 24.4%, and now we're at 40%. And so that brought us up from a G to a C. And the reason I feel like this number has increased is the curriculum, starting at the youngest level, doing things with fidelity. I know people don't like that word, so I'll say consistent, and using evidence-based strategies. And so I hope to keep these numbers going in the right direction using the same formula. It looks a little bit different because we're virtual, but it's still the same structure. It's still the same approach. Evidence-based strategies don't go away just because they're on the computer. So we'll continue to do what we need to do to get these students on track. So our climate data here, we have for perfect attendance in preschool, 24 students, kindergarten 17, first grade 23, second grade 22, and third grade 29. Currently, we have developed plans. Our attendance intervention plans. And what that is, when students are not coming to school, we don't just say, well, they're not coming to school. We say, okay, what do we need to do to reach them? So for our families that are having a hard time logging on and staying logged on, our guidance counselor, our dean of student, also our school social worker are reaching out to these families, and they're developing plans for them. Now, in this environment, perfect attendance for staff is major too. So we have 14 staff members that have perfect attendance so far. Our efforts to improve the climate is weekly meetings with our SEL team, SEL referrals for at-risk students, PBIS behavior assemblies, and those are led by Mr. Terrell, restorative circles, and active social media accounts. This is the way we reach our families. I feel like social media wasn't that big of a deal, but I feel like we are gaining a lot of followers because we want to keep our families connected with what's going on in the school. Our next step is when it's safe, even though, you know, I've been on a couple of porches. I'm sure our parents will tell you, and maybe visited a few daycares, but some home visits, positive behavior referrals, and the Herstory mentoring group, which I am working along with Dr. Johnson, Crystal Books Dillard, did I get that right? I hope, and also Kalisha Lewis. And so we have our mentoring group for our young men that you heard me speak about last year, and Mr. Terrell is now in charge of that. And now we're extending it to our young ladies. And so I'm very excited to be working with that team and to be identifying new students to support. It's the reason why our preschool is a 5-star preschool. It's because they put in a lot of work. Here you can see, I don't know, do you see this picture here? So not only are they providing high quality instruction, they're doing it while meeting all the mandates and for social distancing and all the safety protocols. And they will tell you it's not easy to make sure that preschoolers are in the same space, but they're the model for how you can do it and how you can do it right. So when we do have our students back in person, we will be looking at our preschool teachers, and we already have been looking at them for support and guidance on how to do it well, because they are doing it very well. And I could not be more happy to be working with this group of teachers, and also under the leadership of Diane Shinter. So we continue our community outreach. We have, picture below is the lesson. We've had the Baldwin-Wallace Speech Partnership, where they have their interns work on literacy with our kindergarten students. Here is a virtual lesson. They've agreed to do it virtually for us this year. We have coats for kids. We were able to pass out maybe 60 coats to families in need of, and they're doing the whole family now. So even the adults. So if a teacher recommended them, or if we knew of a family in need, or if the family came to us, we were able to get a coat for the whole family. And then we have a partnership with they call themselves a group of grandmas, and they knit caps for kids. And so every student that got a coat also got a cap. Student activities continue. We want to continue to keep our students engaged, and we want to make them have some fun. Not make them, but hopefully they'll have some fun. So we have our garden club that's now virtual. You see the teacher here, Miss Knight, who leads our garden club, doing there's a few people who do, Miss Wilms and also Miss Evans. So they host a virtual garden club. We have Culture Kids Club, that's ran by Miss Brandy Rigby, and we have Student Leaders, which is ran by Miss Angie Avalon. So all those things are done virtually until we can have our students back in person. The last slide I'm going to show you, and I'm not going to be here long because I know I only got 15 minutes, but I just wanted to show you our art teacher last year when we did the art show online. She said, why wait? Let's collect artwork all year to post online for our families. So here, if you click on that site, I just want to show you, we have an art gallery from K to 3rd grade. So please, if you can, check out the artwork. It's phenomenal. And you will be, I hope you're as impressed as I was. So that is all I have to share with you this evening. And if you have any questions, I can answer them now.
Yes. Well, I should go first because my board members keep taking all my my questions, but that's okay. I'm gonna let them go. Board members, you guys go ahead. Is there anything that you need to ask Glendale's administrative staff?
No, I just want to say good job on the numbers to you and your team. Those are good to see. So, tell them all good job.
Yes, I agree. You're doing a wonderful job over there. You had a big shoes to fill, but I think you're filling them, Miss Black.
Yeah.
Ms. Black, I do have a question. So you had such a large number of parents attending the conference, which was great. It's glad. I was glad to see that parents are involved. But I would like to know, what kind of feedback did you get from that group since you have such young children, kindergartens especially? What kind of feedback were you getting about this virtual learning? Just curious.
So, it was split 50-50. We have some parents that absolutely love it, Mrs. Boynton. And then we have some parents that are struggling and they need more support. Because what we know about this group of learners is that they learn best in person. But for our parent feedback, they understand. They understand that we're doing the best they can. And this is what I heard from a kindergarten parent. She said, I didn't think that this was going to work. And she said, but I don't know how. But these kids are learning. And you want to know why? Because I will tell you, these children, when it comes down to technology and navigating things, they are ahead of the game. We may not have been able to learn like this, but they are. They're able to do it. Still not best case scenario. They need to be in front of us. And when the time is right, I can't wait. I'm going to have balloons and a whole show to welcome them back. We'll have a whole parade. But until then, I feel like our parents are the rock stars. They're being supportive, but they reach out to me. You trust me. They reach out to us when they need support, and they tell us when something is not working well. And then we also, I know that they talked about the program over at Hesket, but we also have the Reach Success program over at Ellenwood. So we're opening up opportunities for our parents where this is absolutely not working for being able to go to Ellenwood and have some in-person learning and also some virtual support from trained tutors. And that's a partnership we have with the library. So I just can't wait for the day where things can get back to normal, whatever that means.
I want to be invited to the show.
You will.
I was very curious because I know you talked a lot about how much phonics and phonemic awareness is so important at that age. We all know that. And I was actually thinking about the attention span of the students, especially being online and seeing that and teaching, because I have a 5-year-old grandson. So it just made me think about it. The numbers look great. The parents are there, but it is fall to fall. So I was just curious how it's working. It seems like you have a lot of your focus, of course, to me, is in the right place. You got to do it over and over again. Phonics, phonemic awareness. If they don't get it now, it's just crazy. I hate the setup, but that's just the way it is. And so I was just curious about. It was great that you had that many parents to come out, and I just wanted to know, what are they thinking? What are they saying? And I do see how you're offering a lot of support for the family, and it is good that there are family members there to help the children, because they're actually, you're right, they're doing just as much work as a teacher. The parents are. So that's good that the parents are there and available. And and not so much relying a lot on the daycare. So, and that was my next question. How's it going with the children that are at the daycares?
Well, we have some, with the children at the daycares, we have some daycares where the environment is different. We have some where they have a school age room and it's quiet. And then we have some daycares that are struggling to support that. So what my plan is to reach out to these daycares and say, how can I help you? One of the things is if we can get some art projects and we can build, have you ever seen the privacy folders? I know you're in the classroom, Ms. Boynton, like the big cardboard ones. I am looking at designing some of those so that our students can have individual learning, like their own cubicles, and getting those to some of the daycares. Not only that, in our budget, we don't have students in person, but being able to purchase some of our students' headphones that need them. There is money in our budget. Mr. Parkinson will tell you, right? We have money in our budget to support those headphones, purchasing those headphones. So we're going to be doing that. So he's going to see that come through off of my desk pretty soon, right? Okay, and I'm just thinking, daycares, internet connectivity.
Right.
That has been an issue with some of our daycares.
Yes.
And I just want to say our tech department, they're going out to these daycares and they are troubleshooting for them. We're providing the hotspots and we are working with these daycare centers to get their daycare set up in such a way and get the computers set up in an area where the children have connectivity.
Okay, thank you. I just know that's happening at so many daycares that's where the biggest struggle is really with the children at daycare. And it's just the setup and the responsibility that's on actually the daycare workers. And they're like saying, no, that's not my job. And it's really hard for the families who are essential workers. They have to go and then with the children are kind of on their own. So I was just curious how you support it. I like that the tech department is going out to help the daycares. Great job. Good job. I like what I hear.
Anyone else?
Yeah, Phil, I just congratulate the Glendale staff on the numbers, great numbers under trying circumstances. And in regards to how you started your presentation, Aaron, when you lose a student, especially at an early age, obviously our condolences as a board go out to the Boozer family, but the school's a family too. And the Glendale family feels that loss. So condolences to the family.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Well, I tell you now, I guess I can get a chance to say something now finally. But board, once again, you raised a lot of great questions. And I tell you, our students, as you can see, you'll be surprised what they can do. And we can't take them for granted. And they are creative and innovative as well. And they're able to adjust and adapt. And they are doing it well from what I'm hearing, what you're saying, Ms. Black. So that is very, very important. I'm glad to see that the numbers from fall to fall actually increased as well. So that's telling us that, you guys are doing a fine job. So keep up the good work. Mr. Terrell, you made it, man. You made it. Your first presentation and you made it. So good job. Good job. And I'm pretty sure Ms. Black is going to put you out there where you feel more and more comfortable and you're going to be doing well. So good job, man. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mr. Stevens.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Dr. Celico, very impressed. I mean, these are some great presentations, and probably because, not that the other presentations weren't, but I believe that this is a lot of the presentations that's being shared now is how we're adjusting to this pandemic more so than anything. And it is showing us the creativeness that our staff is implementing to make it happen. So I am very impressed on what's being created, and that's all I can say. So good job to everyone, Ms. Black, Mr. Terrell, great job in making it happen, and That's all I can say. Good job. So,
Phil, one other thing, real quick.
yes.
In regards to the daycare situation, and this would be a question for Dr. Celico and Bill. Is it within our, are we justified to use in general funds to supply these daycare centers with getting them on board, either with the hotspots or with the study carrels or whatever Aaron was explaining? Is that something that we can use money out of the general fund and not necessarily out of the Glendale budget? Not just the Glendale, but all the schools that are daycares.
Yeah, a lot of these resources that we've been referring to come from the CARES Act money. So there's not as many restrictions, but frankly, and I know I have the board's support on this because you have said from day one, do whatever we need to do to make this the best situation for kids.
Right.
So I've not given a lot of limitations or restrictions. My team, as you can see, has done a phenomenal job, has done whatever it takes, and have provided supports to parents, to daycares, and you can see that, I'm sure, and I do appreciate the compliments of their work because we're not bearing any expense really. I mean, we're being wise with our purchases, but we've got to give the students and parents what they need.
Yeah, absolutely.
I thank you. I thank you very much because that's one of my pet peeves, that we need to work with the daycares because those kids are coming into our school. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
All right, look at our cheerleader over there. All right, Ms. Patterson.
I know, thank you. Yeah, and we've charged Ms. Schenter with that. Actually, I've given, when she took over preschool and is able to concentrate, one of the things I said, aside from preschool, is focus on those daycares. So she has personal connections with them. We've provided resources. We've put staff have gone and visited to try to help acclimate them to standards and teaching strategies. So, yeah. Yep.
Also, I'd like to kudos go out to Dr. Johnson. Dr. Johnson, thank you for navigating through some of these things as well, along with our technology. Our technology, man, I take my hat off to you, and we cannot thank you more and more for what you are doing out there. As indicated, when there's problems with the hotspots or the connectivity for our internet, for our staff, our students and parents, you're there. So I'm ecstatic. So keep up the good work. I'm done with that.
Thanks,
Mr. Stevens. I think James Meyer and I would say that sleep is overrated.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Anything else, Dr. Celico, on what we need to do here?
Yes, we have one more brief. I'll keep it brief because I just want to provide you with an update, and mine will be far less exciting and interesting than what you heard from my two colleagues. So, Dan, if you could assist, Dan's going to assist with showing you just a couple documents here. But again, I just want to provide you, again, briefly with just where we are with the strategic plan. We had, as you know, we were working on a strategic plan for the last few years, and unfortunately, due to COVID, it has delayed us a bit. But I want you to know, over the last several months, we have been working on a new strategic plan, some of carryover from the last, but really formulating new ideas, goals, etc. So we interviewed a firm, ACS, Advocacy and Communication Solutions, probably around January, February of this year. And didn't get off the ground until around April when they started meeting with us. And so I'm just going to walk you through the timeline, and then I'll just tell you again briefly what goals we're looking at establishing and what came out of all of the work. So in step one, the group came in and we're really just trying to get the lay of the land. They were checking in with key staff members and board members, and that was taking place in the spring, April, May, and June. We had partners identified with whom they were going to speak. And then as we headed into phase two, if you will, we were getting a little bit more specific in regards to engagement strategies. And mostly a lot of our conversation at the time was, how are we going to engage people during a pandemic? We didn't know how long this would last. And if we would have held off and kept putting this off, we still wouldn't be off the ground waiting to engage people. So we did the best we could. I charged their team with coming up with creative ways to cast the widest net that they could in reaching people. So they did a number of things. I'll talk a little bit more specifically later, but that's online surveys and many conversations with people. And they did them all Zoom or via phone. And that was students, parents, community members. They did talk with each board member. They also talked with each city official. And then Dan, if you can go down. We kept reevaluating our timeline and process and having to tweak it as COVID was, quite an obstruction for us. But then came step 3, which is really where we are today. And that's the strategy development. We are in the process of creating goals, action steps, strategies, et cetera, similar to what we did with the last plan, but they are helping us, not being in our district. And they shared this with us the other day, and they shared it with me personally, is that COVID has really, they've done their best, but COVID has been an obstacle for them as well in terms of how they would be on site with us. Really, there's some merit, and I find some of you may agree that, just seeing papers on the wall and manipulating information and being able to be in the same room, that synergy to create goals and have these conversations has been difficult doing it remotely. I'm just being, kind of frank with you. That's been a challenge. But they have been able to draft of some goals and looking at what they call our North Star. I'll talk about that as we get to another one. But they've been finalizing some community engagement, and they've interviewed everyone, compiling the information, and now putting them into goals. So then that leads us to, again, that's going to take place just a couple more, probably a few more weeks, if you will. We're meeting with, we have a couple more meetings scheduled. We finally have broken off into some goal areas and identified personnel who will be part of those groups. And then we'll expand it once we talk to the administrative teams, and then involve board members, staff members, community, others to be on those committees. So the last one there is, again, what will happen in the future. And this will be the next steps. Again, we went off the grid probably the whole month of August and a little bit of July. And that was due to the simple fact that without overburdening my team, they were going in so many directions trying to get ready for school that we just couldn't give the attention and detail to the strategic plan. So it was delayed, I'd say a good month and a half. And then we picked back up in September. But then coming up in December through February, we are looking to get back to now get this timeline going again with more specific goals now. In the fall, we would have liked to by now been implementing our goals, but we are still in the process of creating them. So come January, February, we will hit the ground running. We should have everything developed and working. And I would like to then do a public announcement and probably state of the schools, maybe around February, to talk about our new strategic plan. So if you can go down there a little bit, Dan, thank you. Keep going to the next piece. So if you could just bring up that graphic, go up a little further. So just again, to reiterate what they've been doing with the community surveys, you can see there all the different groups that they touched in regards to community engagement and how they went about talking to people, which is through interviews and, as we talked about, surveys, et cetera, and the various groups. And if you go down a little bit further, we have also then more specifically, they interviewed the superintendent's advisory group members. So that those members from last year, I reached out to them, and several of them volunteered to share their thoughts. We had school board members, as I mentioned, everyone interviewed, and then the surveys that we had it online, and then we also had a paper format. And what was interesting, for the first time I think since I've been here, we put it in your schools, and we encouraged people to fill it out if they didn't have access to the computer. And frankly, we got several handwritten responses, which was kind of nice to see from our community members, who I don't think any of them have children in our schools. But so that was nice. And then again, we did that email, and we did it in the newsletter. And then we shared this also with our partners from the city to cast the net again to their constituents that they had access to on their websites, et cetera, to put that survey out there. We had many focus groups, again, with union leadership, the department leadership, we had students involved, we had principals, we had the education and administration teams interviewed, and again, as I mentioned, mayors and city manager. And from that came what I talked about earlier, this North Star, and I'll read it because it's rather small, but the North Star that they came up with after gathering all this information and data, a lot of it being qualitative, but their North Star. So where do we want to be in 5 years, for example, 5 to 10 years? Bedford City School District is a high quality and welcoming school. So those were things that these variety groups acknowledged. And then some of the challenges, again, nothing any of us would be surprised by, which is our report card, and people didn't see it as a reflection of the district's quality education that we're providing, but we are at the mercy of the state system, and people didn't necessarily think that was fair, but it is a challenge for us, the report card. And facilities, we know our aging facilities have been a challenge for us, and doing the best we can to repair. And what I thought was interesting, a lot of not much of this was I surprised by when they were debriefing with me, but this one came out to me as a little surprise, not as a surprise that I feel that staff and educators are fatigued, because I believe that what we do is a very exhausting, draining profession, but it had to have come out and emerged by a number of people in order for it to make it to this list. So in other words, if one person just said, we are tired as a staff, it wouldn't have made this list. But that tells me that a number of people, and I guess it wasn't just staff, but noticing and recognizing that our staff have some fatigue. And I would believe that. Now that I can believe, but in all the scheme of things that are out there, that was a surprise for me. But I'm glad the research was done, because now we know. So the other thing that people mentioned is opportunities. Oh, Dan, hold on, you're going. I got one more thing. The opportunities for what we have the potential of achieving is the improved academic success based on what they see happening in our schools. Our post-graduation success, I think people want to learn a little bit more about that. And then a premier course offerings, facilities, and resources. So just the idea, the board has been positioning themselves wisely, in my opinion, to be able to provide some premier facilities for our students in the acquisition of property, for example, and selling off others that we don't need. Okay, Dan? And then lastly, we created, as I mentioned, so where we are in this phase right now is we had just met with our number of administrators and ACS, our BCSD goals. So what the 4 areas that we came up with, and again, some were similar to the previous plan and some are not. Student achievement, obviously we have to have a student achievement goal. We have facilities and safety, that was in our previous plan, as well as communication. So all of these emerged as being important to people. And the last one, which I'm glad emerged, but I had opened with, when I had spoken with and interviewed the candidates with our team, we had mentioned, and I had emphasized the importance for this equity and social justice, because we are spending so much time concentrating on equitable services for our students and across all of our practices, that I felt strongly enough that it needed to be a goal, and it did actually surface as a priority for many as well. So then, Jan, if you can just go down a little bit more, and the last part of this is just to let you know what we will do is we will be creating goals. As I had mentioned, we have the draft of them. They are actually, we tweaked them, but we have what we believe 4 goals that will align in those 4 areas. And then we will do what you have been familiar with hearing and seeing, which are strategies, action steps, coming up with some metrics that we can measure. And then we will assign leads to take a lead on each one of the goals. We will establish timelines, and then we will continue to provide a report out our progress, as we did, if you recall, that document that had the red, yellow, green. That was one means we had for measuring our progress and our goals, and keeping everyone honest with each one of our goals and action steps, holding people accountable. I don't know that we'll use that same system, but we will use something similar with the help of ACS. The last firm that we worked with, if you recall, my dissatisfaction with kind of left us hanging, and we were out there to create our own mechanisms. And I think we did a pretty good job, considering we were going through it on our own. So that's an update. Just wanted to let you know that we are focusing and working on it, and we will have more specific information for you in the next couple of months. So thank you.
Okay, well, I thank you, Dr. Celico, for the updates and everything. So, board members, any final comments or anything that you need to say before we adjourn?
Will we get an updated copy of the strategic plan that you just presented, Dr. Celico?
Sure. Once we're still tweaking it right now, it's, and then you saw the draft form that was actually from ACS. I can share with you once we clean it up just a little bit. I'll have something for you before the holiday break.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I just appreciate that you're making some kind of progress on a strategic plan in light of what not just this district, but any district is faced with at this time, and to tackle anything other than educating our students under these circumstances. I appreciate the effort. So no need to apologize about falling behind in certain areas.
Right. Anything else? Okay, if there's no other comments or anything that we need to discuss, once again, thank you from the middle school administration staff and Glendale. Good job once again. Thank you very much. And to our viewers, those who came on with us, thank you for joining us this evening. Administration, staff members, teachers, you name it. Thank you for joining us this evening. And stay safe, healthy, safe, because this is what we got to deal with for now. But keep your health and stay safe.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Stevens, do you want to do an adjournment?
Oh, adjournment, yes.
Yes, we're getting ready to. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
We're all like, bye.
Football game's gonna
Board, can I get a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
second.
Okay, I believe that was from Rob. Who else? Second
Mr.
by
Kennedy.
Kennedy. Yes. Motion by Mr. Kennedy and second by Mr. Titch.
No, it was a motion by Mr. Tench and second by Mr. Kennedy.
Oh, okay. Was it? Okay. Sorry about
No,
that.
opposite.
Yeah.
So delayed. I'm sorry.
It doesn't matter.
Thank
What's
you.
the first? He's older.
All right. Please call the roll.
Mr. Tench,
Aye.
Mr. Kennedy,
Aye.
Mrs. Patterson,
Aye.
Mrs. Boynton,
Aye.
Mr. Stevens.
Aye.
All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Thank you.